A tourist encounters Warhammer 40,000 and is enraged that it does not in fact cater to his soft current year sensibilities, and thus elects to write an angry rant on Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Traders Steam forums with the title, "So, this game is a be a fascist or go home." Yes, it is. At the very least, if your definition of fascism is doing the objectively intelligent thing in-universe when a literal inquisitorial agent tells you to do so. Now, admittedly, this is a very modern-day definition of fascism, but seeing as the modern-day definition of far-right is thinking that Epstein's Island was not a very nice place... What can I say? The definition has been broadened somewhat over the years. You know, weirdly enough, I feel like Mussolini himself would not necessarily object to the modern day definition. But so let's dive a little bit into this, shall we? Because I find this a little bit interesting, and well, let's be fair here, this is of course Rogue Trader's first foray into the 41st millennium, and Owlcat has a fair bit of weight in the RPG market, particularly the CRPG market with Pathfinder and the... oh, what was the previous one? No, not Pathfinder. Wrath of the Righteous and Kingmaker, that was the other one, with a lot of people being fans of how they do RPGs, but the 41st millennium tends to be a bit of a hurdle for many people who come into it with modern-day sensibilities. Despite being a colonial fascist officer for a religious fascist empire, I'm trying to be as nice as I can. Well, sir, if you do indeed believe that you are a fascist officer in a colonial fascist empire, what do you imagine being nice entails, really? And the game punishes you for that with negative narrative consequences and even permanent debuffs on your character if you try to be minimally good. So let's put this into context here. What he's talking about here is almost certainly the first major decision in the game at the end of Act 1, Rykad Minoris, because it is the only one I'm aware of that gives a permanent stat debuff to your character. Rykad Minoris is a planet that is currently falling to chaos, rather actively and rapidly. It already had a major heretical uprising that was only dealt with at great difficulty by the Rogue Trader and local PDF forces, but the plans of the Chaos Cultists still came to fruition with the destruction of the system's sun, leading the population to throw themselves on the mercy of the Dawnbringer, or Lightbringer, or whatever it was again now. A chaos cult. By the time you are given the decision to try and save some of Rykad Minoris' civilian population, you are told that they are already converting to chaos en masse in the hopes of salvation. And one of your companions, an inquisitorial agent, tells you it'd be a really bad idea to hang around in this system because, you know, chaos, etc. This could literally create a demon world in real space, best case scenario, or simply just pull the entire planet into the warp. You might not want to dilly-dally. And being minimally good is he tried to save everyone. He tried to save the nobility, he tried to save the civilians, and he tried to save the fusion reactor. If you hang around for that long, you will take a -5 permanent fellowship stat malice to your character, because you are witness to chaos in all of its absurd glory. And further on, it will turn out that taking aboard your ship vast quantities of civilians currently in the midst of converting to chaos has seen a spike in heretical activity aboard your ship. Who'd have thunk it? Who could have seen this happening? Who could have predicted these consequences that the player was literally warned about, and that anyone with the slightest modicum of knowledge about 40k would be able to predict. In fact, a -5 fellowship and a narrative event saying your lower decks are unrestful is remarkably soft consequences for the 41st millennium, considering you have brought aboard God only knows how many hundreds of thousands of active heretics aboard your vessel. Honestly, some more severe consequences would have been apt. Some, large-scale civil wars aboard your vessel, or some sabotage activity at least. Or maybe a visit by rather angry inquisitors, asking some questions as to why you brought aboard the clearly and actively tainted population. Oh well, details. Although being good brought no positive consequences at all until now, the game never shows the consequences of my good boy decisions unless they are bad consequences. That is because, here's the thing, in 40k, what you perceive to be a good action with the ideas of modern sensibilities probably aren't a good action. See, this is one thing that I've noticed with a lot of the progressive types that have gone and infiltrated the 40k community. This prevailing notion that the Imperium is lying to everyone. Oh, if only the Emperor had told the Primarchs about chaos, they wouldn't have fallen. No. Because chaos, it's not bullshit. It's not imperial propaganda. The mere knowledge of chaos in and of itself is corrupting. It is acidic, it is pervasive, it eats away at you. Merely knowing that chaos exists is dangerous. The Emperor was trying to protect his sons and the Imperium via ignorance. Ignorance literally is your strength in the 41st millennium because the gods draw power from your belief, from your worship, and from your actions devoted to them, even if they are not directly attributed to them. Ignorance and the death of this particular form of knowledge is the finest weapon the Imperium has against chaos. And in the modern day Imperium, where chaos is at the very least a understood to some degree and known entity, it is even more so. You have given up on the idea of ignorance protecting you, now you must instead wield the armor of absolute contempt against chaos. You must shield yourself with it. This is the virtue of the imperial peasant, absolute rejection against anything and everything foreign. This is 40k. Chaos is bad. It's not bad because the Imperium says it's bad. The Imperium is not a fascist colonialist empire because it necessarily wants to. It's because it has, through long experience, realized that everything out there is trying to kill them. And the Emperor came to the realization that the only hope to fight against chaos was to create a unified galaxy, and as he just so happened to be a human, his obvious position was humanity should be the rulers of the galaxy. Who else? The Elder? They already had it, and they fucked it up. The Orcs? God, Emperor, help me. The other countless Xeno civilization busy eating each other? No, it must be humanity. That is what humanity is doing. They are not doing this out of just sheer malice. The Imperium isn't oppressing its population because it thinks it's funny. It's doing it because it has to survive. Which, again, leads us back to, if your definition of fascist is doing what is objectively intelligent in the given position, then yes, Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader is indeed a fascist simulator. But the rest of us do not necessarily subscribe to quite that definition of fascism, though. Once more, I can see how, to the modern-day mind, being faced with a game that actually does give you decisions and consequences based on the 41st millennium might be a little bit of a shocker. What do you mean? Being mindlessly good might actually have negative consequences? Why, yes. And it has ever been thus. If only you'd grown up in a slightly less soft time, I suppose. Alternatively, I would highly recommend reading some of Machiavelli. He has some fascinating advices for princes, which might help you to frame yourself in reality rather than in the fantastical universe that we currently find ourselves in, where we have managed to convince ourselves that all necessary actions caused by, well, distress or a lack of resources or a lack of choice is clearly evil. Oh, actually, there's a whole larger discussion about this and how the entirety of the modern day progressive class simply cannot understand a situation in which you are required to take choices that are immoral in this world that may indeed be moral in the world in which the choices are being taken. But this has to do with a, well, simple lack of imagination and the incapability to actually put yourself in a position that isn't your own.